Okay, let's graph r equals cosine theta. So when you set up your own coordinate chart, you would put theta first and then r. And r happens to be cosine theta, so I just wrote that so we would have it so I could see what I'm solving. So when theta is 0, it would be cosine of 0, and cosine of 0 is 1. So I would have a point right here. Right there, guys. Okay. And at pi over 6, it's cosine of pi over 6, which is square root of 3 over 2, which is about 0.87. So here's at pi over 6, I'm going to put it about 0.87. Okay, and then at pi over 4, it's the square root of 2 over 2, which is about 0.71, so it's getting smaller. And then at pi over 3, it is 1/2. So 1/2 would be right here. And then at pi over 2, it is 0. So far, it looks like that. Now, when we do 2 pi over 3, I'm on this row right here, I get -1/2. So I have to back up on this line -1/2. So it would be, so it would be right 2 pi over 3, it would be right there. There's my -1/2. And then at 3 pi over 4, it would be square root of 2 over 2, or 0.71, only it's backwards. So I am at this line, but going backwards. So trying to make sure I have my lines right. This one would be right about there. And then -0.87 would be about there. And then at pi, it would be -1 again. So you're at this pi, but you're going back -1 to here. So you end up with that shape. Okay, little shell set the other way. All right, so I'm going to skip. I'll show you the picture if you want to graph it of r equals -3 sine theta. So I will do it and then show you what it should look like so you can give it a try. Okay guys, this is how number 7 should look. R is -3 sine theta. So you figure out your points. It started at 0, 0, so there's that point. And at pi over 6, it was -3 halves, -1.5. So here's pi over 6, but I got to go backwards. So I'm on 7 pi over 6 actually, and I'm going backwards 3.5. So there was my point there, this point right there. Then it was at pi over 3, -2.6. So again, I'm going backwards on this line. So I'm getting this point right here. And then at pi over 2, it was -3. So I got that point right there. And at 2 pi over 3, I'm kind of doing symmetry now, because at 2 pi over 3, it was -2.6. And then at 5 pi over 6, backwards, it was 1.5, and then back to 0. So that's what that graph looks like. Let me clean it up so you see it. That's what that graph should look like. Okay, moving on to the next one. Okay, so with this cosine one, it was 4 times cosine. So let's just do the math. First, if you did all these, you would have 4, 3.462, 0, -2, and -3.46. So here was the first point. When theta is 0, it was at 4. And then at pi over 6, it went to about 3.46. And then it went to 2 right here at pi over 3. And then to 0. And then you need to go backwards. So at 2 pi over 3, it was -2. So that comes back over here to that point. At 5 pi over 6, it's -3.6 here at that point. And then at pi, you're back at -4. So that was what that one looks like. Now, before we finish, I want you to look back and see the symmetry of the cosine ones versus the sine ones. So go back and look at your notes. See if you can come up with how those are similar.